Hi, this is Eric Smith. Time to do another quick look video, and I thought I would do it from Nehemiah chapter 9, verses 33 through 34, and the Word of God reads this way. Howbeit thou art just in all that is brought upon us, for thou hast done right, but we have done wickedly. Neither have our kings, our princes, our priests, nor our fathers kept thy law, nor hearkened unto thy commandments and thy testimonies, wherewith thou didst testify against them. In the book of Nehemiah, when we get to chapter 9, from verses about 5 to 38, we have a confessional prayer that was more than likely written by the scribe Ezra and was either probably spoken of from Ezra or Ezra and the Levites. But this prayer actually went over a lot of things. It talks about Israel's history, the events of the Exodus, and then the conquest of Canaan, and eventually their sin, and then they're confessing their sin. And this part of the verse of the chapter, verses 33 through 34, is really talking about that. Now, Ezra was the scribe that had come back to Israel to help with the rebuilding of the temple. Nehemiah came back later and helped rebuild the wall. So both Ezra and Nehemiah, those books are kind of interconnected. So I would suggest that you read them. But what I want to show you from these two verses is the actual justice of God. So verse 33 says, Howbeit thou art just in all that is brought upon us. So the nation of Israel is saying, everything that was brought upon us, you actually did, and it was just that you did that. It was just that we were punished and sent to Babylonian captivity for 70 years. And then it gives the reason why. It says, For thou hast done right. So, God did the right thing in punishing Israel. Why? Because God is a righteous, holy, just God. And then the last part of the verse is the contrast. It says, But we, and that's Israel, have done wickedly. So why is God just? Because he's righteous and holy, and the people of Israel did what? They sinned and they did wickedly. But then in verse 34, you're going to have the specifics of the wicked things that they did. It says, Neither have our kings, our princes, our priests, nor our fathers. Check the list out. It mentions the kings and the princes, and they are the political leaders. It mentions the priests. Those are the religious leaders that make intercession to God for the people. And then it says our fathers. And that's the ancestors, the generations before, the father and the father's fathers. So all of these group of people did what? It says, neither have any of them kept thy law. And when it says kept the law, keeping the law is more than just obeying the law. It's actually cherishing the law, guarding it in your heart. And they didn't do that. And then it says, nor hearkened unto thy commandments and thy testimonies. So they didn't listen to God's commandments, and they didn't listen to his testimonies, and that's just God witnessing to the nation of Israel of who he is and what they should be. And then it says, wherewith thou didst testify against them. So God did what? He testified, or he witnessed against Israel about their own wickedness. Dear Christian, we like to talk a lot about the justice of God, particularly lately with the social justice movement that we see going on. But here's the problem. We can't ever have our own version of justice, whether we call it social justice or anything else, and think that equates to biblical justice. These two verses actually gives us a guideline, a foundation for biblical justice. In verse 33, it tells us God is just and he does the things that he does to punish, because one, he's righteous, and two, who he's punishing, they're sinners. They've done wickedly. That's the criteria for God's justice. He's righteous, and sinful man is not. And then in verse 34, you have the second foundation of his justice. It must be specific. Notice God is mentioning who did what. He mentions kings, princes, priests, the fathers, the other generations. He's telling you exactly who was unjust, who did wickedly. And then he tells you the things they didn't do. They didn't keep his law. They didn't listen to his commandments or his testimonies. So Christian, today, if you want to talk about justice, you can't put another name on it and say it's biblical. It has to line up with this criteria. It has to line up with this foundation. If it doesn't, it's truly not justice, not in a biblical sense. It's just justice of our own making. It's just justice the way we want it to be. And you know what? As Christians, we can't have that type of justice. We have to have biblical justice. So this is Nehemiah chapter 9, verses 33 through 34. Just wanted to do a quick look on it just to encourage you, Christian, that you can certainly stand for justice, but you want to stand for the right type of justice. Godly, biblical justice, and not make some other type of justice godly by slapping a Bible verse on it or misinterpreting verses. We can't do that. We have to understand what justice is from God. As always, if the videos on this channel have encouraged your Christian walk, but you have not subscribed to my channel yet, and you want to, hit the button. If you want to leave any comments, please do so, but please don't be snarky. Please do not be profane. We want to be Christ-like in everything we say and do. And until we do another quick look, remember something. It is certainly fine to speak of justice. We can do that as Christians. But don't make any other type of justice biblical justice if it doesn't line up with what the Word of God says. God is the one who tells us what justice is. We need to have our criteria of justice based on God and not our own making. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching, and God bless.